Fire in the hole, fire in the hole, fire in the hole.
Every decision we make leaves an afterglow, a sort of imprint of who we are. And one day, it will be an imprint of who we were. For me, this podcast may be my legacy, or maybe I will be simply known as the guy who left his hometown, his friends and his family, and hit the road. Legacies are not always these sweeping, world-changing impressions. They're not exclusive to the famous nor the noteworthy. Everyone gets one. But it's not something concrete, not something that can only be seen one way. Black and white are not the way legacies should be interpreted. For example, any political figure. Anyone who had supported the individual may have a favorable opinion of the changes they made and the actions they took. But the opposition most likely had a much differing view. And this isn't a right or wrong thing necessarily, it's a perspective thing. Many noble people have taken actions throughout history to make changes in ways that they believed benefited the world, but in the process may have caused more damage than anticipated. As they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So the question is, how do we remember people? Is it for their intent, or is it for the results? I'm Cody Creech, and welcome to Quiet Town, a weekly audible road trip to lost history and local lore. This week, I welcome you to the Black Hills of South Dakota, to a massive undertaking on a golden rocky peak just a few miles away from one of America's most iconic attractions. But the subject today transcends just being a roadside lore and forces us to ask ourselves about the morality of leaving legacies for our heroes. Our story starts with a boy named Korczak Jukowski, which I must say, his name is spelled much differently than it's actually pronounced, but anywho, he endured a difficult childhood to become the frontman for one of the biggest pieces of art that the world has ever seen. So let's go back to September 6th, 1908. Born in Boston to Polish parents, Korczak was given up to an orphanage at the age of 1 after his parents were killed in a boating accident. He would spend most of his childhood hopping from foster home to foster home, no doubt a difficult way to be introduced to the world. Life did not get any easier for the boy when he was adopted by a pair of abusive parents who found him more useful as a servant than a son. Although a negative experience, he did gain vital skills in construction while working for his adopted father. And at 16, he ran away and began working 3 separate jobs to support himself until he was taken in by a caring teacher. Korczak would put himself through Rindge Technical School in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And after graduating, he found a home as an apprentice to a Boston shipmaker, crafting wooden parts as a pattern maker for the shipyard. His newly gained carving skills inspired the boy to work on his own pieces, and he soon became a respectable furniture maker. At the age of only 18, he made a stunning and intricate 55-piece grandfather clock crafted from Santo Domingo mahogany. Progressing quickly but without any formal training, he studied the masters, drawing inspiration and technique from those before him so he could create his own masterpieces. And in 1932, he did just that, carving his first portrait out of marble using just a cold chisel. His subject, Judge Frederick Pickering Cabot, an important figure in Korchak's early life. Judge Cabot was a well-respected man who was born into a wealthy family. He would become president of the Harvard Union, president of the Boston Symphony, and a regular at the prestigious Union Club. Although ambitious and successful, Cabot would be remembered mostly for his work with the poor children of Boston, advocating that troubled and delinquent children needed respectable role models to look up to, and people who believed in their abilities to overcome the odds stacked against them. Cabot would become that role model for many of Boston's underprivileged youth, one of which happened to be Korchak Joukowsky. The judge saw the blossoming talent that the boy was and encouraged him to pursue his abilities. Cabot paraded Joukowsky in front of other youth and made him the poster boy for promising ascension. He even invited Korchak to mingle among the elite in many Union Club functions, rubbing elbows with some of the wealthiest and most prestigious gentlemen of the city. So when Cabot passed in 1932 at the age of 64, it seemed natural for Korchak to honor the mentor that helped, quote, heal his life, a man that took an orphan and helped him realize that a more fitting title was artist and sculptor. In 1939, Korchak carved a stunning sculpture of Ignacy Jan Paderewski, a Polish composer and politician who advocated for Polish independence. This piece would win him first prize in the New York World's Fair, garnering attention from a significant artist named Gutzon Borglum. You see, Borglum was in need of an assistant on a massive undertaking buried deep within the rocky wilderness of South Dakota, a piece destined to be a staple of Americana. Mount Rushmore. Although Joukowsky accepted the position, things became tense quickly. Korchak had been expecting to be named the primary assistant, but instead was given the lesser title of sculptor's assistant. The desired job had been given to Borglum's son, Lincoln. Korchak didn't let his frustration pass quietly. In fact, he had been so vocal that Borglum responded in a much more punitive way. A telegram that informed him of his release from duties. Korchak had been fired, and fired like a kiln he was, returning to the job site and invoking a scuffle with Lincoln, the daft job stealer. The fistfight had to be disbanded by other workers, and the outcome was still the same. Korchak had been removed from the project. But Korchak wasn't necessarily out of work yet. That award-winning piece that Korchak had made for the New York World's Fair had a lasting impression on another group, the Native American Lakota tribe.
Then I got a letter from this old Indian I'd never met, standing there. And he asked if I'd build a memorial to their people, so the white people know the red man had great heroes also. Well, having brought myself up and being American of Polish descent, I thought that wasn't too much to ask for. And I had no place to go.
Now, with time spent working on a massive project like Rushmore on his resume, Korchak was a super appealing candidate to front a project being commissioned by Chief Henry Standing Bear of the Lakota people. In letters sent to Korchak, the chief attempted to convince him to work on a larger-than-life monument placed somewhere in the significant land of his ancestors, a focal point for Native American culture and pride. And eventually the two met, discussing the project specifics, the size, the design, the location, and of course, the subject that was to be immortalized in a mountain. A man, one of modesty, respect for nature, and pride for the land of his ancestors, a Lakota hero by the name of Crazy Horse. Crazy Horse was a fierce warrior, one that knew the art of war but also the art of caring. Although he was well known among the people, he tended to be shy, modest, and liked his solidarity. He often entered towns and spoke to no one, except the children. He refused to have his picture taken, an indication that he did not find importance in himself being recognized or preserved. There are no records of him dancing, and no records of him singing. although both are regular parts of Lakota culture. But he did understand the joy of laughter. He would frequently tell jokes to his warriors just before battle, bringing a little levity to the morbid realities ahead. He gave to the poor, the elderly, and the youth, and would eventually give his life for his cause. He was killed September 5th, 1877, after a highly debated scuffle ensued between him and a guard, leaving him with a fatal bayonet wound. His legacy would be summarized as a man who fought for his people, his beliefs, and his land, defeating Custer at the Battle of Little Bighorn, and meeting his demise while fighting for his freedom. A man who lived modestly, gave often, and chose a life of humility, not recognition. One of Crazy Horse's more famous quotes is a response to a question asked by a cavalryman. "Where are your lands now?" the soldier teased. "My lands are where my dead lie buried," he responded. Words that would inspire the design of the monument itself, crafted with Crazy Horse mounted on his stallion, his head faces straight, stoic in posture, and his left arm stretched out before him, index finger extended, with the rest of his fingers gently curled. And he points east, to the barren contours of the Black Hills, and to where his dead lie buried. Quiet Town is made possible by PickyPuppySamples.com. I know from growing up around dozens of animals that every furry family member has their own personalities, and if your dog is anything like mine was, their personalities may lie somewhere between stubborn and picky, especially when it comes to their food. My dog wouldn't eat half of the foods we put in front of him, and because of this, we would end up spending hundreds of dollars on large bags of specialty food, only to throw them away when our dog turned his nose in disgust. And the people at Picky Puppy Samples know that issue all too well. So they created sample-sized dog food. Try all the top-rated dog foods without committing to large expensive bags. The samples range from puppy to specialty, and their individually packaged bags allow for easy transport. So if you travel often or live a life on the go, their small sealed packaging are tailored perfectly for your lifestyle. Right now, they are running a special offer specifically for our Quiet Town listeners. You get 2 free mystery samples at checkout by entering the promo code QuietTown. That is the promo code QuietTown at checkout when shopping at PickyPuppySamples.com.
Crazy Horse Memorial, I think, needs to be. It represents 2 things to me. It represents the integrity of our elders who asked Korshak to build a monument honoring one of our chiefs in our sacred Black Hills.
That voice you just heard was that of Billy Mills, a Native American and Olympic gold medalist in the 1964 Olympic Games. As part of the Lakota tribe, Billy has put his stamp of approval on the Crazy Horse Memorial, as have many others within the community. And it is this type of support that has fueled the process of getting the monument made.
I didn't intend to make it this large, you know. I intended to make something 100 feet high. And I said, oh, what the hell, I got no place to go. I'll carve the whole mountain. Now they knew I was crazy.
Because of World War II, the work on Crazy Horse wouldn't get started until 1947. Korchak came back from the war injured, but that didn't deter him. He spent 7 months living out of a tent while he crafted a log cabin by hand. And by the time he had completed pioneering the land void of electricity and water, 2 years had passed and Korchak was now 40. With only $174 to his name, he began the actual work on the mountain, constructing a 741-step staircase to the top of the bluff. He would climb it multiple times a day. His compressor was unreliable, and it wasn't rare for him to reach the peak of the mountain only to hear the clunker choke out. He would make the trip back down to revive the machine and once again hustle back up the 741 stairs, only to have the compressor die out again, and so the vicious cycle continued.
and I drilled my holes around 3-4 feet deep and blew them off. Then I bought an old compressor. It was 24 years old, an old Buddha, weighed around 4 tons. And I put a pipeline 2,440 feet long from the compressor on the ground up to the top of the mountain. And I bought a jackhammer. Now, this took 2 years to get all this done. And then I bought another hammer, and then my steel. Dynamite is rather expensive, and my electric cap. So over the first 7 years, I climbed that 741 steps, and I carried everything up on my back. When I go up, I'd start the big compressor. I used to crank it, you know, and I put a 50-pound box of dynamite in one shoulder, and put a wire, a string of bits around my neck. Then I'd take maybe an 8 or 10 or 12, 14-foot steel in my left hand, and that's how I'd start up the mountain. The old Buddha, the old compressor, was kind of decrepit, and I'd get sometimes quarter of the way up, and I'd just hear that thing go kaput, 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 kaput. Put everything down, walk all the way down the staircase, start her up again, crank her up, wait there 5 minutes, start up the mountain, pick everything up, go up to the top, which is quite a distance, put all my things down, get my air valve cleaned out, oil the hammer, pick it up, get my starter seal in it, just start to drill one hole, get down about a foot, and you could hear the big Buddha, kaput, kaput, kaput. Down I'd go again. One day I did that 9 times. You know, that gets awful old. Oh, I tell you, that walk up and down there is terrible.
He built his own cable car system running from the base of the mountain all the way up to the pinnacle. And although this method saved him a lot of manual labor moving large tools up and down the range, it did involve a significant amount of danger. Carrying both Korchak and whatever devices he needed, the cable car basket would climb a few hundred feet and then suddenly fall 30 feet back down. Despite the specificity needed to chip away at the ridge, the tools of the trade were rough, boring holes 16 feet deep into the rock and fracturing it away with sticks of dynamite.
This fellow said to me, "Mister, how do you know the crazy horse is in that mountain?" And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what I do. Every morning up there, I drill about 8, 10, 16-foot holes. And then I fill them full of dynamite. And just as I pull up the plunger, I say, 'Crazy horse, are you there?' And I push the plunger down, and he says,
In 1950, he married Ruth, a previous assistant of his, and together they found a source of cheap labor. 10 children.
Dad gave us his dream, but Dad and Mom gave us just being their children. And so it's our dream now, but Mom and Dad gave it to us. But Mom and Dad had the hardest part. They were told they were crazy for 20 years, and they made it so people would believe in Crazy Horse.
His work has to come first, or he'd just be another person selling insurance or cars or something like that.
Ruth even understood her place in Korchak's life.
Before my lovely wife and I got married, I took her by the hand and we walked out of the house under the dirt, and I said, "Honey," I said, "you see that mountain?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Never forget. It comes first. You come second."
And she agreed?
She said, "It's all right with me, dear." Now, the children know that. They know they come first. That's a common understanding in our house. Everybody knows.
You're a hard man.
What's hard about that? It's my life's work. I didn't come out here to marry a woman to have a lot of children. I came out here to carve a mountain.
As Korchak aged, he was not immune to the injuries that come from a life of carving a mountain. Slipped discs, arthritis, and heart issues troubled him in his later years. But the man did not stop working. Multiple times along the way, the U.S. government offered to help. But the family declined and chose for it to remain a family project. The fear of the government moving in and trying to make their own of the monument was not something the Joukowsky family was willing to risk. Korchak spoke on the ego that may be involved in making that decision.
Tell me, mister, how can I ask you to believe that I can climb that mountain if I don't believe in myself first? Of course I'm egotistical. I believe I can do it. I know I can do it.
Today, the sculpture is still incomplete, but don't let that deter you from paying the site a visit. The scale of the project is still mesmerizing. His face was completed in 1998, giving you an appreciation of the detail the team has managed to create. His eyes alone are 17 feet tall. Since then, significant amounts of rock have been cleared away as the project has placed focus on the pointing hand and the horse's head. The site also houses extensive museums, including the Indian Museum of North America and the Native American Education and Cultural Center. The museums are gorgeous. The interior is a forest alone. Light-stained wood reflects the light permeating through the massive panoramic windows. The museums house hundreds of artifacts from Native American tribes all across North America. Part of the museum also pays tribute to the work that has gone into the mountain. Korchak's self-built log home, where him and his family lived, is still on display. Many of his life's works are housed inside. From the busts of important people in his life to the mahogany grandfather clock he built at 18. There is also a model of Crazy Horse that lines up perfectly with the mountain. The model is a perfect 1/34th scale, and from the right perspective, you can align it with the mountain and envision what the future will hold.
It'll be 641 feet long by 563 feet high. The opening under Crazy Horse's outstretched arm would be big enough for a 10-story building to fit in.
The Crazy Horse Memorial will be of titanic proportion once finished, reaching 564 feet tall at the peak and spanning 640 feet long. This will be the largest sculpture in the world. For a quick size comparison, all 4 of the president's heads on Mount Rushmore would fit into the head of Crazy Horse. To put it simply, this piece, only 8 miles away, will dwarf one of America's most iconic attractions.
Actually, it's the same type of rock as Rushmore, only this is finer grained, and it has a reddish color. And as Korchak said, he didn't want to carve a white Indian anyway.
And then the project isn't just the mountain, it's the humanitarian and educational side, which he thought was more important than the mountain.
The plan is for this work of art to be the centerpiece for a university. In 2010, the Indian University of North America was created to further the promise made to create a place of education. With help from the University of South Dakota, students can now take summer programs at Crazy Horse campus, earning up to 12 credit hours and working paid internships. Of those who have completed the program and matriculated onto other universities, 86 have been American Indian. There's a beautiful painting displayed at the museum that shows the vision of the memorial's future. A beautiful campus, complete with round buildings for residential housing, athletic facilities including an open-air stadium, and a spring-fed reflecting pool that lies at the base of the mountain, skirting the perimeter and giving the molded mountain a beautiful bed that echoes the immense work of art protruding skyward. Quite the homage and a tribute to the legacy of a hero. And with such noble intentions and hope to spread the positive words of a highly respected man, have they actually disrespected what the man lived and died for? Many would say yes. Crazy Horse was not a man who wanted to be recognized. He wanted to live a humble life, one that respected the environment and his people's land. Most certainly, he wouldn't want those lands carved up, especially to transpose his face onto a mountain that he loved in its natural state. Of course, there is the other side that Standing Bear and Korchak saw and championed. Creating a monument that gives Native Americans something to be proud of, acts as an introduction into Native American heroes and culture for those unfamiliar, and a place to further education whether about the tribes that graced the lands before, or just general forum to create a better future. Either way, monuments are never truly for the deceased. They're for the living. Something to make us feel like we still have a piece of their spirit captured in a painting, building, or bust. Sometimes, even a mountain. Korchak is buried at the base of the mountain. In a way, he attempted to control his legacy, even past a life that he felt righteous. He hollowed out a cavity with dynamite and crafted his own tomb. He crafted the doors that would one day seal his body, and he even wrote his own tombstone. Cut from metal and mounted to the mausoleum in the mountain, it reads, Korchak, storyteller in stone. His story and legacy still being crafted above him. Years after his hands became idle, his thoughts, his work, his dreams and story are still being told, left up to interpretation.
But there's no frame on this canvas.
My God, I have the biggest frame in the world. I got the sky. I got the forest. You know, it's just like that wonderful saying by that white antelope, that Indian. Nothing lasts except the earth and the mountains. Well, if I could have 6, possibly 7 more years, when you drive up that highway, you will definitely see an Indian figure pointing to the southeast on a horse. It will not be polished. I think I'll live long enough that when you drive up that road, you'll say, yes, sir. That is Crazy Horse. That's the story of the Indian people. Yes, I'll live that long.
By then, he had heard the story about the white trader asking Crazy Horse, very much in derision, where are your lands now? And Crazy Horse pointing over his horse's head and said,
My lands are where my dead lie buried.
This episode of Quiet Town is written and produced by me, Cody Creech. But the stories don't have to stop here. By subscribing to Quiet Town on Patreon, you'll be able to access exclusive content. Find me on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Quiet Town Podcast, Twitter at Quiet Town Pod, and don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. We live and die by the stars. Also, find us at our website at quiettownpodcast.com. Message me. I want to hear from you. Tell me your favorite Quiet Town stories, and one day, it may just become an episode itself. I love listening and learning just like you. So, tell me a story. And of course, thank you for listening. I'll be back next Monday with a brand new episode.